we were told that somebody was going to come in and surrender mice, and they wanted our assistance. And so we got the first 3 tubs of mice, and we're talking the large tubs. And unfortunately, they were not all healthy. But we ended up with, as they continued to come in, over 800 mice.
This is Grounded in Granite, where every person and every place has a story to tell. I'm Jason Schreiber. Hello, everyone. Welcome to today's episode of Grounded in Granite. I'm in Stratham, New Hampshire at the New Hampshire SPCA, or the New Hampshire Society for the Prevention of Cruelty to Animals. And I'm joined by Lisa Dennison, who is the president and CEO of the animal shelter here. And she is retiring after a 32-year legacy here at the SPCA. So we're going to hear about how she got started and how she has really brought this facility to, it's amazing the work you've done here to really build this place up. And I want to hear about what it was like when you started, because it's nothing like what it is now. And you have seen, how many animals have come through here?
Hundreds of thousands.
Since you have been here.
I've been.
Hundreds of, which is really just amazing. So I thank you for sitting down and sharing. I know you're super busy. We have some cats behind us that you can see that I think just came in from Florida.
There's 5 cats in here, of which only one is choosing to be on camera at the moment.
But...
Yeah,
there's a few others, but anyhow, lots of cats, lots of dogs, and all kinds of other animals here. So, so Lisa, what does it feel like to be ending this chapter of your life?
I think honestly, the most honest answer is bittersweet. I love the New Hampshire SPCA. I love what we have built together here.
Yeah.
I love coming to work every day. And I feel so blessed after 32 years to be able to say that, because not everybody can.
Right.
And, when I come down the hill every day, it's active and bustling, and people are here. This morning we have a volunteer group. We have junior volunteers. We have homeschoolers. We have our veterinary centers got clients coming in. Of course, they're cleaning and feeding and preparing for the days of adoptions. There's just all the different departments are working hard. And we are a full service agency now. And that is a big shift in many ways. And it's just a joy.
Yeah.
I am blessed. I've been blessed. And I'm just so happy. I'm happy where we are and for the future of the agency as well.
It is the largest
in New Hampshire?
Shelter, right?
Yeah.
Well, in New Hampshire, right?
Animal welfare organization.
Animal welfare. Okay, that's what you
Because,
prefer.
here's one of the things that's really funny. We are the oldest and the largest in New Hampshire.
Yeah.
People talk about, and the reason we gave up the word shelter is because that's one piece of who we are. So sometimes people think we're closed on Wednesdays. Well, you could see what the parking lot was like today and all the people that are here.
Closed, but no, there's a ton going on.
The only part of us that's closed is the adoption center. The veterinary center's open, behavior and training, humane education, animal protection division, farm and equine. Everything else is open.
Yeah.
And it's just so we can do the deep cleaning that you saw going on today.
No,
and we can do training and all those kinds of things. So we never want people to think we're closed. We're open, and we're here 365 days a year.
Yeah. Was it a tough decision to make, to retire from this place? After being so dedicated to so many animals for so long?
Sure. It was really hard. I've thought about it for a few years. I'm not as young, perhaps, as I may appear. And so, as you, begin to age and life moves on, you start to think about, I wonder when I'll retire. I wonder, what that timeline should look like. And there came a point where I recognized that it was time. And so then it was just hard to pull the trigger on that, but I did, so to speak. And And
what have you, I want to get into to the history, but what have you enjoyed most about your job here and your life at this place?
I love the passion of the people I work with. I love the commitment of the people who work here, who volunteer here, who contribute here. I love that, everybody has the same goal, really, which is to further the human-animal bond and to, find forever homes for homeless animals, but also to help our community. So as we've grown, it's really been a groundswell of thinking and a groundswell of doing. Um, and honestly, I love that every day is different. And so we're what I would call a learning organization. We're constantly learning. We're constantly reinventing ourselves and
Yeah.
expanding what we do. And that we've had the privilege of being able to do that over all these years, to go from where we were to where we are. And
So where were you? Speaking of where you were, where were you 32 years ago? Where was this facility?
Sure. So when I started here in 1994, I had adopted from here when I was in college in the 80s.
Yeah.
And so it was no different. 14 years later, it was the exact same shelter.
Yeah.
And it was, confused as a pound.
Yeah.
It was open trench drains in the dog kennels. It was chain link fence. It was dog facing dog, cat facing cat. And so you had, cage aggression. It was scary. We would tell the children when they came in, walk down the center of the kennel, put your fingers in your ears and try not to stare at any animal because that's kind of challenging. And we had predator and prey in the same area. So we had cats and rodents in the same little tiny area. We transferred wildlife in those days. So we would have perhaps a beaver out back with our cats, our laundry, it was just, it was kind of a shack. And if it rained, we had the joy of having the water run from one end of the building through to the other.
Oh my
because it would just come right through the foundation.
Yeah. Wow.
So, but we did amazing work back then too. I remember a rescue of 125 birds. And so, and 20 tanks of amphibians. So even in a shack, and it felt like that in many ways, we had a staff of 10. We all did everything. And we had adoption counselors and we each had our own roles, but it was all hands on deck with those kinds of things, as it often is still today. But, we did the very best we could, but our live release rate was 55%. It was very difficult to have such small quarters, to have animals who we couldn't really help if they were sick. We didn't have vets on staff. We didn't have the knowledge and the skill and ability to treat animals if they came in with a broken leg or whatever it may be. So it's a very different time than it is today.
Yeah. Do you know square footage wise what it was then to what it is now?
Oh, yes, I do.
And I know you've got more buildings.
I do. So the adoption, the shelter at the time, and we tried to give up the word shelter when we built again, but it was 4,500 square feet. That was the entire agency, first floor, second floor, et cetera. Now the adoption and learning center is 25,000 square feet, but that doesn't include another 2,500 in our new veterinary center and what we did in the last renovation and during COVID and construction. That's a good time.
That was a fun, that was fun. Yeah.
So, we're closer to 30,000 square feet now.
Wow.
And that's just... that's the buildings. The other piece that was different was we were 6 acres. We were the center strip. And we've since expanded on both sides. So now we're 15 acres here, plus our pet cemetery, which is another 3. So we're 18 acres versus 9 that we were when I started.
And you must be taking in more types of different kinds of animals than you did 32 years ago, right?
Ironically, no.
Oh, no.
Ironically,
you just made do with what you had.
We made do with what we had. It wasn't the best circumstance for housing, for animal stress.
Okay.
As I said, our placement rate was much, much lower because we didn't have capacity.
Yeah.
But then we had probably 2 horses on our property, 3 horses, at any given time. I think a week or 2 ago, we had 26 horses on our property, plus the goats and the pig and et cetera, et cetera. So from that perspective, when we did our most recent renovation, it was to be able to provide as comprehensively for our large animals as we do for our small, because that's how we were founded in 1872. We were founded on beasts of burden, which are those large animals, the work animals. So we didn't even have a shelter until the 70s. So, very different evolution, but now we have a beautiful indoor. We have 2 barns. We have many paddocks. So it's just a beautiful place to come to every morning.
So the SPCA has been here since...
We haven't been in this
Or
location.
okay.
We were founded in 1872. We were one of the 10
Oh my
oldest humane
gosh, I didn't realize it
societies,
went that far back.
yeah, in the
Wow.
country. The ASPCA was founded in 1866,
Okay.
and so you can imagine,
Yeah.
just 6 years later, we were founded by a
Mhm.
woman, Sarah J. Pickering, and she had been horrified by the way horses were being treated. They were being driven from Portsmouth to Newington. They were left out in the hot sun with
Oh.
no water. They were being
Hmm.
driven up Mount Washington. They were having stones ground in their ears when they were misbehaving. These are some of the stories I've read from the
Ooh,
old days.
oh my gosh.
Ironically, something you probably also don't know is that so that was 1872. In 1876, we founded the New Hampshire Society for the Prevention of Cruelty to Children because we
Oh.
believe that children should have at least as many rights as animals. Because
Oh,
if children were
interesting.
being beaten, but animals were being protected when they were beaten, children should be
Yeah.
protected. And so
Oh,
we did
wow.
that for almost 75 years.
Huh.
Um, and so when I look back
Interesting.
through our history and
Yeah.
and through some of the documentation, it's fascinating.
Wow.
Um, but
So
then we stopped doing that portion in the.
mhm.
It appears to be in the 60s, 70s, and then animals weren't living inside. Dogs and cats weren't living inside in the 1800s, early 1900s.
Mm.
So sheltering really became a thing more in the 50s, 60s,
Mhm.
70s.
Yeah, yeah, I see.
And our first shelter was on the traffic circle here in Stratham. It's an old stone building.
Okay.
Um,
So that's where the
That was the
original
original shelter.
was.
Before that, it was an agent, an investigative agent, which is how we were founded, and the
Mhm.
secretary of the organization, and of course the board.
So what has been the most challenging part for you, trying to keep this place running and growing and there's emotional times, I'm sure, with
Absolutely.
animals and the situations you find. I mean, I probably I can't even imagine all that you've had to bear.
Yeah.
I
Um,
mean,
there's 1,000 stories,
yeah,
and we don't have 1,000 hours, but
yeah,
um, there are so many heartwarming stories
mm,
and stories of recovery and
yeah,
renewal, and there are so many stories of welcoming and acceptance and it's everything because we're a comprehensive agency, because we're so much more than an animal shelter. Yes, we have an adoption center. Yes, we shelter and we rescue animals and we transfer animals and we
mm,
take in homeless animals and we take in animals that are currently in harm's way, and
mm,
we have safe pet programs and things like that. But um, we also have a very, very vibrant humane education program. And so for me,
mm,
part of my joy is that we're building the next generation of compassionate human beings
mm,
because, you know, you want to teach children about kindness and compassion and responsibility. And so this is a way that resonates with them, and also teaches the next generation of animal welfare workers, right?
mm,
Of potential animal caretakers, whether it's in your home or in a job.
mm,
Um, so I really love that. I love that we've been able to grow and go out into our community with veterinary care and reach seniors in nursing homes or who are allowed to have pets or in,
mm,
you know, assisted living facilities, things like that, or senior housing. I love so many of the different ways in which we've incorporated our Alzheimer's Cafe and, reaching out to individuals who have, memory loss and may not remember their own children. But when they see and put their hand
mm,
on that dog and they are petting it and they start talking to Sparky
yeah,
and they tell the story of their dog Sparky, and their caretaker or their child, whoever's bringing them, says that story is so accurate. He had a dog named Sparky, and
mm.
everything he said is accurate. It stimulates a section of their minds and
Right, right,
memories that's so
yeah.
different.
Mhm,
So
mhm,
whether it's children or seniors or
mm,
individuals looking to find a new home or somebody coming to do behavior and training or
mm,
being able to provide veterinary care, or we see animals for 1,000 different reasons. People
mm,
who've passed and they have an animal and nobody in the family can take it
yeah,
because for a variety of reasons. So I think, those are some of the ways in which, um, we make such a difference. And
mm,
I really want to stress how this is two things. One, we're a welcoming organization, so we have we work with individuals and volunteers with all different kinds of abilities. And we welcome kids in our Humane Ed programs with all kinds of abilities. So,
Mm.
um, it's really important that we have full access. And the other thing is we couldn't do it. And I say we because without our community of
Mm.
staff, but our volunteers are amazing,
Mm.
amazing. And our community of supporters are incredible.
Mm.
And the dedication that people have, whether it's our partners in businesses, et cetera, this is really a community organization. This is, yes, somebody has to lead it, and I've had that blessing and that privilege, but I couldn't do it without the rest of the community joining in. And so it really is as remarkable as I believe us to be because of
Right.
the groundswell and the diversity of thought and opinion and ideas, et cetera.
Well, and the fundraising, I mean, that is constant, and fundraising and just trying to get financial support from just putting out pleas when you get, you have a massive rescue that you've got
Absolutely.
to. So, I mean, that's just a constant
Sure.
here,
So
right? I mean,
a perfect example of that is there's so many examples of this,
yeah.
but we got a call from an individual who wanted to surrender their birds. And they said they thought they had about 20 in the separate room of their apartment. And so we went in to go get the 20 birds, and it turned out to be 60. And it was because they were nesting in the bookcases, they were nesting behind the bookcases. They didn't realize it. And so then we had to put out a plea. We didn't have enough cages for 60 birds. And the community responds.
Yeah.
We did a rescue of 20 cats. They were 82 or 81, I think. But they all looked alike. So there were probably 20 at any given time in the same space, but they kept coming out of the woodwork as we kept collecting them. And again, all of a sudden, you don't have the capacity for 80 cats in one day. And so we put out a plea. Or it could be a large farm rescue. It could be anything.
Or mice.
Or
talk about the mice. Let's talk about the mice.
Oh, my goodness
you
gracious.
Share the mice for people who haven't heard about the mice story.
So, yeah, the mice
Which was
story.
recent.
It was recent. It was just in the last couple of years. We were told that somebody was going to come in and surrender mice, and they wanted our assistance. And so we got the first 3 tubs of mice, and we're talking the large tubs. And unfortunately, they were not all healthy. But we ended up with, as they continued to come in, over 800 mice. And so we shared that wealth with all of our sister shelters and partner shelters across the Northeast.
Everywhere.
We did. We were bringing a horse to Connecticut. We took mice with us to the shelters in Connecticut. We took mice to Rhode Island. We had them in Maine and New Hampshire and all over Mass. And so, and then we had hundreds of mice here. But again, same sort of thing. So people were giving us their aquariums. We put out a plea because you have to separate them or they'll fight. And they'll kill each other,
and
really.
These are pet mice. These, right. I mean, they weren't really mice necessarily.
They were pet mice. No, they were not feeder mice. They were pet mice. And people would say, and it's like, how can you judge the value of a life? A life is a life, right? We place mice all the time. We were not going to give them to reptile rescue kinds of organizations. So hundreds of people did adopt them, which was wonderful. They all ended up getting adopted either through us or others.
Yeah.
And it was incredible. I mean, our entire cat room, which usually holds 10 to 15 cats, was table after table and tank after tank. And the 9x9, it's a 9 cubby. There was a tank in every cubby.
Yeah.
It was pretty funny, but if you stood back and looked at the scenario, it wasn't funny at all, obviously, because it was a situation where somebody started with just a few and they got out of control and they didn't know when to stop and they didn't know when to ask for help. And that was the big thing, because we are here at the end of the day to help people.
Right.
We're not here to shame people. We're not here to judge people. We're here to help people. And sometimes I've heard, I don't want to surrender because I'm going to get judged. Well, but you're doing the right thing. You're doing what we ask you to do. If you can't care for your animal, please bring it to us and we'll rehome it. Can we do it in that minute? Maybe not. I don't know when they're calling, but we will work with you to resolve the issue. And that's the whole point, is we're here to help. And so we really want people, before it becomes 800, when it's 20 or 30, boy, we could have done a lot more for 20 or 30 than we could for 850.
Are there any other stories that
Oh
over the
my
years?
goodness.
Well, I know there's a million, but that you want to share that just were either really heartwarming or really whatever.
Yeah. So there's so many stories, as you say. There's the animals that come in that need to be put on a refeeding schedule because they have not been fed. And I want to preface this by saying, there's cruelty and there's neglect. Cruelty is intentional, neglect is unintentional. And sometimes it's hardship. We've seen animals that have come into us because of a spouse has passed, and the spouse, it was their quote unquote their animals. They were the primary caretaker, and the other spouse didn't know how to care for them, and they tried and tried and tried, and so the animals are losing weight, and eventually we get involved, or just something happens. But you certainly may recall the German Shepherd case where we ended up with 32 German Shepherds. That was a terrible situation. That was somebody who was being neglectful. Many animals lost their lives in fires, so that was tragic. The pit bulls was tragic that we did in 2001, 42 fighting pit bulls, and we had gone in and seen all the dog fighting paraphernalia. It was a tragic situation. We had the dogs for 6 months, and even the puppies that were 3 days old when we got them were at 4 weeks tearing themselves apart. And that's not how it always happens, but it was a difficult situation for animals that we were caretaking for and that we were trying to raise and hope to rehome it someday. But there were also, stories where we took 125 animals in partnership with other shelters out of Berlin, New Hampshire. And one of our dear volunteers put the 6 goats in the back of his Volvo, and he's driving from Berlin to Stratham, and he's like, you can imagine him, please don't pee, please don't pee, please don't pee. And, in his Volvo. Yeah, and then he hears it. And he's like, no. Well, long story short, he had to get rid of the Volvo. But, wow. there's just 1,000 different kinds of stories where people have stepped up and helped. Yeah. We have had during an ice storm in Maine, 4 days, and we may have had no power. Well, we had no power and no water at the New Hampshire SPCA for 4 days in the dead of winter. And volunteers were hauling water for us because you can imagine 200 animals under our roof and no water for cleaning, for feeding, for drinking. And then we had the tragic, our well went dry. Our well. Now we had 20 horses on the property who drink about 20 gallons a day, and all the animals. And we had a lovely Buxton Water came and actually hooked up their 18-wheeler, their water tank.
Buxton Water?
Yep. Yeah. For 6 months. While we had to re-drill a new well, and then the well didn't work. It went on and on. So, what are the hardships? The hardships are when you lose your water, when when you lose your power. In those days, we didn't have a generator, so we couldn't pump water during that ice storm. But these are things we've fixed over time. Yeah. So, the hardship is when we can't help as quickly as we'd like to. But 99.9% of the time we do, and the staff is super eager to step up and help. And when we have major storms here, we have staff that sleep over. They stay here on air mattresses. And in the old days, we didn't even have air mattresses. They just chose to sleep in the pods, and they'd grab a shelter dog and snuggle with it and stay warm at night. And, it's just, I think it's that passion from our staff that always wanting to hold the animals up in the best light, always wanting to help in the best way possible. That's what inspires me every day and has.
How do you deal with emotions at times when it's in some of these difficult situations? I mean, do you must get attached to some animals maybe?
Sure. I do get attached. I had an animal in protective custody. An African gray bird I got very attached to. His name was Callie. Thankfully, at the end of the day, after 18 months of being held in protective custody, and one of our volunteers who has large birds adopted her. So that was joyful.
Yeah, nice.
I think, sometimes it's the hardship of the circumstances. We did a rescue, and it was the first time I called Elder Services because I was not only horrified for the condition of the animals, but I was horrified for the person who was living in the circumstance. And I really felt as though they needed services. Unfortunately, they said people can live in squalor and we can't help. And I was really discouraged in that moment about how we allow our seniors to live. And I had, a woman with dementia with horses that were locked in underneath in the barn and open airways where cats were roaming in and out of the house. So, it's those are
Yeah.
some of the real hardships. Um, but, and I've had some staff sadnesses along the way. Um, both losing staff and losing donors and losing volunteers that has been tragic. The untimely death of a volunteer who was near and
Yeah.
dear to my heart and actually drove the Volvo in the prior
Yeah.
story. And it was that was really hard. There have been times when we've had to humanely euthanize an animal that's been really difficult, and often with staff and volunteers as well. But, at the end of the day, my role is to hold up the team, whatever that looks like, and I deal with it later,
Yeah.
But when I'm here, I need to, when I've had to have ambulances arrive to help someone and things like that, you are the professional in the moment and you address it later.
Do you bring a lot of this home with you? I mean, when you go home, are you able to turn this? I don't know how you would. I mean, you're just, I don't know.
I am one of those human beings who overshares.
Yeah.
And so my poor family has overheard. But they also are very passionate.
Yeah.
They've grown up with this organization. They were not part of my family when I started here, right?
Yeah,
I was not married. I did not have children who are now adults.
Yeah.
So they've grown up in this organization. And, I think, when I talk about bittersweet, when I get emotional, I think about my kids and my personal life and what my vision was when I was contemplating whether or not I would apply or whether I would accept the job through the interview process, what my hopes were in that time. And to be at this other end and look back is emotional.
Yeah. I'm sure.
Yeah.
I'm sure. It's a lot of your life.
Yeah.
Here
Yeah.
with these animals. Are you the longest serving
CEO?
CEO? I mean, I don't know, and even in other similar organizations.
So yeah, as far as I know, I am in New Hampshire, and in most organizations, people's tenure, if they will go, might put 10 years in at one agency and go to another agency and put in another 10 years.
Like in the animal,
like
in
animal welfare. In animal welfare, they'll go from shelter to shelter as the shelters get bigger, the opportunities get bigger, the challenges get bigger. You just progress through your career. I do know a few people who've been in the industry as long as I have or longer.
Okay.
We're spattered throughout the country,
but not here in New Hampshire.
Not that I know of.
That
no.
you know of. Yeah.
No.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Did you I assume you were an animal lover growing up, or
I was. I got my first cat, Blackie, right? Original name. My black kitten when I was 5 for my birthday. Yes, I've been an animal lover my whole life. I've had the animals that we all should have and love on, and I've had some of those animals that if I knew now then what I know now, I wouldn't have had, like a pet skunk, Petunia Blossom, though she was spoiled rotten. Not exactly the most appropriate house pet.
skunk.
Yeah, but I was in middle school. What did we know?
Oh, man.
We just didn't know. But yes, I've always been an animal lover, and when I went to
Yeah.
school, I sort of had a dual track of life of what I loved and the two things I loved, and I traveled both paths for many, many years. Even as an adult in my career, I traveled both paths. And but yes, I was a wildlife management major for a while. I was conservation, zoology, that kind of thing. I worked for a vet when I was in high school, and so I worked at oh my goodness, the Museum of Natural History in the research area with the animals. So I've had lots of fun opportunities in life. And then I left the animal welfare area for many, many years and then came back and took this position. And it's just been the joy of my life.
Were there ever any times when you kind of wondered if you would last to 32 years?
I never wondered because I never put that thought out there because it was inconceivable. I mean, why would I even think that? I just was always one day at a time, one year at a time. And, when I started, I'd been at other jobs for like 6 or 7 years. And I thought, I'll probably do this for 6 or 7 years. And because you're always learning and there's always a new challenge and a new opportunity, it never occurred to me to stop. It
Mhm.
never occurred to me to stop. I loved what I did every day. And because so in 1994, I was hired, and they asked one of the questions they asked me during the interviews was, we think we need to build a new shelter. Do you think you could build a new shelter? And I was never built a new shelter. I was like,
Mm.
sure, why not? I don't
Yeah.
know,
Yeah.
why not?
Yeah. Yeah.
Sure, I
Yeah.
can do
Yeah.
that. That's just sort of how I go.
Right.
And so we built in 98, 99. We started the campaign for what would become the new adoption center, which we opened July 5th, 2001.
Hmm.
And then, years go by, and we also had done the campaign for the Learning Center. So 2003, we built the Learning Center. So now we had the new adoption and learning center. We'd already put up the lamprey barn as well.
Mm.
And then it's like, well, we need a generator. Okay, so we did, work at the auction and raise the funds for the generator. And then, years go by, and of course, you have a new program. You're growing out your behavior and training. You're growing out your humane education.
Mm.
And then we said, well, you know what? We really need to help our community have access to care for veterinary care.
Mm.
So we built the new veterinary center after we had already built some programs in transports we started doing in 2004. So, you keep growing programs, and then
Right.
you get a little tight, and you're like, we need to do better by this. And so we
Mhm.
built the transport area, the
Mm.
veterinary center, et cetera. And then in this last campaign, which we were started thinking about in 2013, was expanding our campus. So that's when we started thinking about how to expand with the abuttal properties so that we could
Mhm.
have walking trails for the dogs.
Yeah.
And that happened really with the German Shepherds because we were walking
Mm.
them around and round on the
Really?
pavement.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so now we could walk through the woods.
Mm.
And so that was really
Mm.
so, healing for the dogs and for the staff. And, um,
Mm.
so much more enrichment to be able to sniff and smell the dirt and walk through trees than to walk
Mm.
on pavement day after
Mhm.
day. Um, and so when we had our abutters, then came the time for the campaign to open that up. And so now, instead of the 6 acres in the middle, we were truly a campus, and we changed our language because we are a campus. We have our outdoor education
Mm.
area, we have the outdoor walking trails, we have the dog um, pens out back for play groups and meet and greets and just off leash play, and
Mm.
the ring trails and the rain gardens, and
Mm.
and of course the indoor arena and the other barn and all the other paddocks on the other side. And so
Mm.
it's much more of a campus. Um, and we've grown out all our programs. And so, with each new opportunity and then success and then growth and development, then you butt up it back to your next challenge, which is, where do you put all the cars for all the people who are coming here? And ironically,
Right. Yeah.
we joke about, why didn't we build a second floor? Why didn't we build
Mm.
you don't
Yeah.
really want to build a parking garage, but we really need
But
more
yeah.
parking.
Right. Right.
So,
Yeah.
it's just funny things that happen along the way, and then you
Mhm.
problem solve that.
It's a lot. It's just very, very impressive track record here. And before we wrap up, so what's the strangest animal you've ever had here? Can you think of any, like an animal you wouldn't typically have here that you had to?
An emu?
Oh, you had an emu.
We had an emu.
Okay.
We've had, so the
Okay.
stray emu that was sitting
That's
on somebody's porch that had
okay.
gotten out of an emu farm.
Okay.
We've
Yeah.
had, you know,
I,
when you talk about the hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of mice, we
yeah.
had um, a couple of horses or the ponies actually, and I'm going to mess up on their name, but they're like two of 400 left in the world.
Mm-hmm.
They're
Mm-hmm.
up from Canada, and but there've been so many, whether it
Yeah.
was
Yeah.
the wildlife that we've seen come through
Yeah.
here, and certainly,
Yeah. Yeah.
um, it
It's,
just,
yeah.
the military macaw that was, 3 feet long and
Oh,
amazing and
wow.
just
Wow.
beautiful, and
Wow.
it goes on and on. You never know what you're gonna see.
Mm.
We've had hundreds of dagoos, over the years, but, we did a rescue with over 80, and
Mm-hmm.
um, so just lots of strange animals, and lots of just beauties like the ones that are all sleeping behind us.
Yeah, they have been,
Yeah,
yeah,
you've got
very well
she came back up into her
Oh,
side.
there she is.
Yep, she's back
Okay.
on her side, and
Yeah, yeah.
that's Maeve
Maeve.
and Teddy and Sweetie, those
Yeah,
3 on
yeah.
top and more on the bottom.
Well, we thought of, I thought of setting up with the dogs, but I think it might have been a little loud,
Yeah, it would have been a
maybe.
little
Or
loud,
may
and
yeah, yeah.
potentially much busier with
And
the
busier,
walking and
yeah.
and
No,
feeding
this
and
is nice,
cleaning.
and they've been nice and quiet. And Lisa, is there anything else you want to share? I mean, you've shared a lot and a lot of history, and I really appreciate you taking the time to sit
Sure.
down. But any
It's a pleasure. I guess I
final
just
thoughts?
yeah, it's always thanking our community, thanking all the board members. My goodness, because the board members have been my resource, as and their skills and they're all such unsung
Yeah.
heroes,
Yeah.
along with all the other volunteers. I mean, we have hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of volunteers and
Yeah.
thousands through
Amazing.
the years, and our donors who've believed in us, who've trusted us with their resources, who've contributed to us and stood by us, to the staff who, oh my goodness, I have a staff member who's been here 30 years as well. We just celebrated her longevity.
Really?
Yeah.
Oh my gosh.
And some of this, who started as interns and then grow up with us, both personally and professionally, whose families, have grown up with us too.
Yeah.
My kids came here and one of mine slept under my desk when, on those sick days, and her
Yeah.
daughter would be here, and now her children come. And
Yeah.
so the generations that have
Yeah.
grown up with us.
Mm.
So I'm just so grateful for the partnerships that I've had along the way here and, of course, at large, those in other agencies who continue to be my friend and be my colleague and have listened and helped along the way.
Well, Lisa, thank you again for taking the time, and I wish you the best of
Thank
luck
you.
in your happy retirement. I have known Lisa for many years in my job as a reporter, so I met you many years ago.
Yes.
So I've seen your work along the way, and it's been great. So. Well, until next time, remember, every person and every place and every animal has a story to tell. We'll see you soon. Thanks for tuning in to Grounded in Granite, where we celebrate the people, places, and stories that make New Hampshire home. If you've enjoyed today's episode, make sure to follow Grounded in Granite on Facebook, X, TikTok, and Instagram for behind-the-scenes clips, photos, and more. Subscribe to the Grounded in Granite YouTube channel to catch full video episodes. You can also find Grounded in Granite on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Amazon Music, and iHeart. Until next time, stay curious, stay connected, and stay grounded in granite.